Yeah. Um, my name is Craig Ng. I'm General Counsel, the lawyer for APNIC. Welcome to this afternoon's session on IANA stewardship transition. Today's session, we are going to talk about three things. We are going to take you through what is the IANA stewardship transition and explain to you about what that means. We'll talk to you about our progress so far, so where we are now, and we'll talk a little bit about our implementation plans, what's next. So that's how today's session is structured. It's a very important session that we're having and a very timely one as well. The community process for the IANA stewardship transition is at its pointy end. We are getting towards the finalization of the plans. And the comment period for the proposal closes tonight, 23:59 UTC, which I think is about 15 hours time from now. So this is the opportunity for you to participate and for us to get the views of our Asia Pacific community about the IANA stewardship transition. So we've got lots of acronyms. There's the ICG, there's NRO, there's CRISP, there's ICANN, there's CWG, there's CCWG, APNIC. A lot of acronyms, but they are not to be feared. I think they are to be fully embraced. These various organizations with their acronyms, it's a symbol of our multi-stakeholder model of internet governance at work. It's a system where every single person, every person's voice is heard, and you have an opportunity to contribute to the discussion about our internet future. There are many opportunities for you to participate today, and I would encourage you to speak up and to let your voices be heard on the IANA stewardship transition. I'd like to introduce you to our panel to start with. We're very pleased to have a fantastic panel of leaders in our community, people who work very hard behind the scene, and sometimes not behind the scene, in making sure that we have an open internet that's stable, secure, and available to all of you. I'll start from my left. The first one is Axel Paulik. Axel is the CEO of RIPE NCC, the European version of APNIC, but also the chair of NRO, the Name Resources the Number Resources Organization. NRO is the collection, the association, if you like, of all the 5 RIRs. Next to Axel is Elise. Elise Gehrig is the Vice President of ICANN, IANA, Technical and Operations, something like Technical Services and Operations. Next to Elise is Alan Barrett. Alan is the CEO of APNIC, the Africa version of APNIC, and also a member of the ICG. ICG is the middle thing up there, the IANA Stewardship Proposal Coordination Group. Next to Alan is Izumi Okutani. I think Izumi is all very well known to all of you. Izumi works for JPNIC, but is also the chair of CRISP. CRISP is our Consolidated RIR IANA Stewardship Transition Proposal Team. I'm a member of that as well. And next to Izumi is Paul Wilson. You all know Paul. Paul is the Director General of APNIC, but also a member of ICG. So let's start. I thought we'll start by running a video to explain about the IANA stewardship transition. So where are we now? Where are we going?
Stewardship transition. Where are we now? In March 2014, the NTIA, a U.S. government agency, announced its intention to transition stewardship of the IANA functions to the global, multi-stakeholder community. What does this mean? The U.S. government has had a historical role in overseeing certain key Internet functions, collectively known as the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, or IANA. These include management of the global pools of Internet number resources, making the regional Internet registries and our communities key stakeholders in this process. Currently, these functions are operated by ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. A global response to the NTIA's announcement was required. All the communities involved in the IANA functions were asked to develop a transition plan to transfer the stewardship role from the U.S. government to the multi-stakeholder community. Discussion on how to do this began in venues around the world. As a result of these discussions, an IANA Stewardship Transition Coordination Group, or ICG, was formed. The ICG identified 3 specific communities with strong interest in the IANA functions: the names community, the numbers community, and the protocol parameters community, and asked each to develop their own plans for transferring the IANA stewardship. To develop the numbers community proposal, the 5 regional Internet registries used well-established, community-driven, bottom-up processes to facilitate discussions at the regional level. A consolidated RIR IANA Stewardship Proposal Team, or CRISP team, made up of representatives from each RIR community, brought together the output of these regional discussions and merged them into a single number community proposal. On January 15, 2015, following extensive community consultation, the CRISP team submitted the number communities proposal to the ICG. The numbers community proposal prioritizes stability, security, and reliability, quality of service, and community empowerment. In a nutshell, the proposal would see ICANN continue in its current role as IANA functions operator. The RIRs representing their communities would assume stewardship of the number-related IANA functions, the role currently held by the NTIA. The 3 key elements of the numbers proposal are a new contract with ICANN in the form of a service-level agreement for the provision of the IANA numbering functions, the establishment of a review committee to evaluate the IANA services, and clarification on intellectual property issues, including the use of the IANA.org domain name. Importantly, the number community will continue to have responsibility for all policy development processes related to Internet number resource allocation. So what's next? With the 3 community proposals now submitted, the ICG is working to integrate them into a single IANA stewardship transition proposal for the NTIA. Drafting of this proposal and community discussion around it has already begun. The ICG expects to finalize its proposal around the ICANN 54 meeting in Dublin this October, after which the ICANN board will deliver it to NTIA along with the outcomes of the related community-driven work on ICANN accountability. The NTIA's review and evaluation phase is likely to take 4 to 5 months, including a legislative review by the U.S. Congress. During this time, groundwork to implement the ICG proposal will proceed so that when the final sign-off from the U.S. government is received, the IANA stewardship can be smoothly transitioned. The completion of this process will be a historic event and make the stewardship of the IANA functions, which are so integral to the Internet, truly a global responsibility. Until October 2015, there will be numerous opportunities for community input to the ICG transition proposal. As we move to consolidate, approve, and implement the IANA transition, it's vital that the views of the number community be heard. Join the NRO IANA transfer mailing list to follow the number community discussions and find more information, links, and all the latest updates at nro.net.
Thank you very much. So we'll start off today by getting Elise to talk to us a little bit about what it is that is the IANA number functions. We're very, very pleased, of course, to have Elise here. Elise is a very good friend of ours, and it's really under Elise's stewardship and management of the IANA functions that the community feels so strongly and confident that they want ICANN to continue in that role. So the three community, as you saw from before, the numbers, the names, and the protocols parameters have all recommended and proposed that ICANN retains this role. So it's a lot of it is due to Elise's very much hard work and professional leadership. So I'll get Elise to talk about the numbers functions for us. Thank you.
Scary, sorry. Thank you, Craig, for the really nice introduction. And I'm hoping that that little kitty cat in the video is looking sad because everyone's tired of hearing about the IANA stewardship transition and that they're not anti the IANA stewardship transition. But anyway, it was a very cute video. I'm not actually talking about the transition. I'm talking about what the process, the operational process is that the IANA department follows today to deliver on the IANA functions numbering service. So what you're going to see is just one picture. This is a process workflow, and it's the high-level process workflow that the IANA department within ICANN follows in order to deliver the numbering services. So you'll see there are two swim lanes. I'm assuming you're all familiar with process workflows. Good, because I'm not going to explain what that means. But the first swim lane, where everything starts, is with the RIRs. And notice we just say one RIR because you usually don't send in requests from all 5 of you at the same time. So the RIRs initiate a request. That request comes into us at the IANA department. And somebody asked me the other day, well, does it come in through a web form? Does it have to come in a spreadsheet? Does it have to come in an email address, an email? And basically, we've been very, very flexible about how we accept that. We post online a spreadsheet format that some people use, some RIRs use, but not all 5 of you. So it could be any different ways, but once we receive the request, it goes into our trouble ticketing system. And the person who submitted that request from the RIR gets an acknowledgement. I'm now at number 3. And after that, you go to a decision box. So did the person who sent that from the RIR, are they authorized to send it? It's yes or no. So I'll just follow the yes path because it's a little simpler. So if it's yes, someone was authorized, they're on the list that we've gotten from, say, APNIC of people who can send in requests, then I can't read that. It says, did the request follow all the policies? Is that what that says? Required? Oh, does it have all the required information? If I can't read it, I'm sure you can't in the room. So the decision box is, did the request have all the required information in it? Yes, the APNIC person who sent that to me knew what they were doing, so it had all the right information. So the yes box then says, goes to a sub-process, and that sub-process is evaluate the request according to the policy, the global policy that ICANN has been told that the RIRs agreed upon, and therefore this is an implementation of that policy. Right now, there's really only 3 global policies that we receive requests for. One is for an allocation of IPv6 addresses. The second one is for an allocation of autonomous system numbers. And the third one is to add an IPv4 address to the recovered pool. So those are the only 3 kinds of requests we'd have. Notice I didn't mention that we get IPv4 request policies because the RIRs all know that we're out of them, and that the global policy for distributing IPv4 addresses is that we do it twice a year based on a mathematical formula, and it's run by a program that does it automatically. So if we got an IPv4 request, say up there in block number 2, we would basically go and say, well, that doesn't meet the policy. And so it would go back to the person who'd submitted it. I know that's a little digression, I'm sorry. So now we've said, okay, it meets the policy, we've run the right sub-process, okay, it met it. And the yes box goes to number 11, which says IANA review. And that's where every country has legal checks of things they're allowed to do in business. So we have legal checks of what we're allowed to accept or not accept, and who we can do business with and who we can't do business with. So this is the legal checkbox. Then we go to number 12. Okay, did it pass or did it not pass that sub-process? Yes, it passed the process. And finally, we go to allocate and update the registry. In the case of if it's an IPv4 returned address, it's just really updating the registry. Otherwise, it's an allocation too. Finally, it says, the question is it an address request? Because that's going to determine whether we do something else or not. And if the answer is yes, then we update the reverse DNS management system as well as doing the allocation. The next block, 15, is we notify the RIR that submitted the request that we've fulfilled their request. Then it goes to notify the community. So that means we put it in the registries, it's published, everybody knows. And we get to the end. We finished. This is the process we follow for all requests. And as you can see, we don't make up any policy. It's an operational workflow process. And this is how the IANA department handles all the requests that we receive from RIRs today. And that's all I think I was asked to talk about. So
Thank you very much, Elise.
Thank you.
That's incredibly useful. So when we talk about the IANA functions and the transition, this is the work that you perform under the contract with NTIA. And what we're talking about is in the future transferring that contract to the RIRs. Just in terms of context, Elise, this is a question without notice. Can you just tell us about the number of transactions you perform for numbers, names, and protocols parameters, just to get some context?
Yes, so we perform on an average of 5 requests for numbers a year. We fulfill several thousands of protocol parameter requests a year. I could look up the number, but I didn't come prepared for the number. And with the names, it's around 1,000 a year, mostly because the GTLDs have come on board. We had far fewer before the introduction of new generic top-level domains.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you very much for that. I hope that gives everyone a good picture as to the work that's performed by the IANA functions operator for our community. I want to go next to talk about the ICG proposal. So I mentioned at the start that we are at the pointy end. So the reason I say that is because each of the 3 communities have submitted the proposal to ICG, and ICG is now in the process of consolidating all 3 proposals and making it into the one. And the close for comment is tonight, 23:59 UTC 0. And what that means is that it is about 14 and a half hours from now on. So your views would be very important. If we can hear from you about the proposal, what you think about the proposal, then this is the best place for us to collect your views and to submit that to the ICG tonight. But talking about that, I'll get Alan. Alan is is a member of the ICG. I'll get Alan to comment a little bit about what the proposal is that ICG has put out for comments.
Okay, hi, I'm Alan Barrett. The ICG is the IANA Transition Coordination Group or something like that, IANA Stewardship Coordination Group. The ICG was formed to create a proposal for how we would transition the NTIA's oversight role away from the US government, the NTIA, and to the international community as a whole. So the ICG asked for proposals from the 3 operating communities, that is the names, so DNS names community, the numbers community, that's the RIRs dealing with IP addresses and AS numbers, and the protocol parameters community, that's the IETF, dealing with all the numbers that they use in all their thousands of protocols. The three communities submitted proposals to the ICG. The first two came in January and the last one only in June. The ICG has put the three proposals together into a combined document. Essentially, they just took the three proposals and pasted them in as chapters in the combined document, and they added a forward and an executive summary, and that's pretty much all that you'll see in the ICG's proposal. The diagram on the screen here shows the end result. So what's missing is the before. This is the after picture. The before picture is that ICANN is a department, ICANN coordinates all the work, and IANA is a department within ICANN. There's a contract between the NTIA and ICANN. Now this contract is going away to be replaced by what you see in the picture here. On the left of the picture, you'll see the IETF. The IETF will have a MOU with ICANN, in terms of which ICANN will perform the IANA functions for the protocol parameters. There's a service level component to that, and oversight is performed by the IETF through the IAB, which is it's easy to think of it as sort of part of the IETF. Then on the top of the diagram, you'll see the numbers. The little circle with the 5 smaller circles in it represents the 5 RIRs. The RIRs will have a service level agreement with ICANN, in terms of which ICANN performs the IANA functions for the numbers community. That is dealing with IPv4 addresses, IPv6 addresses, and autonomous system numbers. To the top right of the diagram, you'll see a review committee. The review committee is a new thing which is proposed to be created, and it will look at the performance of the IANA numbering functions and report to the RIRs about any perceived problems with performance. And then at the bottom and the right of this diagram, you'll see several boxes which deal with the names community. The names community in their proposal said that they would create a new organization called PTI, the Post-Transition IANA. And the IANA functions will change from being done by a department of ICANN to being done by a separate company. We expect that the same people will be there, and they'll still do pretty much the same job, but it will be a separate company instead of merely a department of ICANN. And that idea came from the names community, and the RIRs and the IETF are okay with it. They'll allow ICANN to subcontract their parts of the IANA functions to PTI. So in the names community, then the customers of the IANA function are all the top-level domains, the country code top-level domains, the global top-level domains. These are the customers. You'll see them at the bottom center of the diagram. The customers send in requests. If there's a complaint about how a request has been handled, that goes to a new body called the Customer Standing Committee, the CSC, which will investigate any complaints. In the case of serious problems, they can initiate a review process. The box labeled IFR is IANA Functions Review, which is a process which can review the performance of PTI, especially regarding the naming functions. And It's possible eventually, if things go really bad, that the IANA function can be moved out of PTI into a new organization. The numbers community also has the possibility to cancel the contract with ICANN if things go really bad. And the IETF also has the option to cancel their SLA agreement with ICANN if things go really bad. But for the time being, we expect things to go smoothly once the transition is done. Of course, there's a lot of technical work to be done, but we fully expect that Elise and her team will be able to provide the IANA functions on an ongoing basis, and that there'll be no need to go into all this cancelling of contracts and reviews and things. So that's essentially it. The proposal is what we see in the diagram here. Each of the three operational communities has their own agreement, either with ICANN as a whole or with PTI. They each have a way of reviewing the performance. They each have a way of cancelling the contract and moving operations to another operator if that's ever necessary. But we all hope that doesn't happen. I think that's all from me.
Thank you very much, Alan. That's very, very useful. I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, am I oversimplifying it to say that everything is intended to remain the same, but instead of the US government signing a contract with ICANN to procure the services for us, we are now our intention that we sign a contract ourselves with ICANN to provide that service.
It's the intention that the operations will continue to be the same, but the oversight mechanisms are all changing. So yes, instead of contracts with NTIA, there'll be contracts in other places. Instead of reports being submitted to NTIA, there'll be reports sent to other places. There are several new review committees which are around the periphery, but I think it's fair to say that the operations are intended to remain the same.
Thank you very much. Now, we're very, very privileged to have Steve Crocker. You can see him on the screen. Steve is the chair of the ICANN board. Welcome, Steve, to Jakarta. I hope you can hear us clearly.
I can hear you clearly. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be able to join you, albeit remotely. I'm very, very impressed. I had a chance to see the room before the session started, and you do indeed have a very distinguished panel. I've been advised that I should keep my remarks short, so I want to cover just a small number of points. First of all, let me thank Elise and Alan for a very cogent, straightforward presentation. And let me offer congratulations to everybody who's been involved in the preparation of this multi-layered proposal process, the CRISP team, the other communities, the ICG, and also over in the accountability area, an enormous amount of work, a huge amount of work by an awful lot of people, everybody with quite sincere and earnest effort to address both what problems they may have seen in the past and also to anticipate any problems that might come up in the future. I want to offer a personal perspective, personal in the sense that I've been involved with the internet from the beginning, and I've been involved with ICANN for a long time, since about 2002, and I've given quite a bit of thought to the process that we're undergoing now, but I gave a lot of that thought well ahead of any thought about this formal transition process. I listened quite a bit to members of the community express concern about how close the interaction is with the IANA group. And I think, as everybody understands, things are in quite good shape now, but there were times in the past where things were not 100% smooth. And I reflected a bit about the creation of ICANN and the IANA function. ICANN was created exactly to house the IANA function back in the late 1990s. And so I've thought it a bit odd that the various operational communities have sometimes expressed a sense of distance. All the more so because if you look at the structure of ICANN, we have very explicit representation on the ICANN board from each of the operational communities. The numbers community has 2 slots, 2 seats on the board. Kuo-wei Wu is one of them, and I understand that he's there. Ray Polzak is the other. We also have 2 representatives from the names community, and we have a liaison from the IETF. So one of the things that's puzzled me, and I'm going back well before the announcement from NTIA last year, is why there'd be any sense of distance. And I think the answer is very simple and straightforward. And I want to be quite direct about this. The GTLD processes, the contracts with the GTLD registries and registrars, and all of the political issues, technical issues, financial issues associated with that, have obviously taken up a very large fraction of ICANN's time and resources, and from a distance makes it appears that that's sort of the business we're in. Those of us who are very closely associated with ICANN, and particularly come from a technical background, have never lost sight of the fact that the IANA function is the absolute core, sort of the reason for our existence, if you will. But we can easily understand why it looks different from the outside. I was thinking some years ago that maybe a useful thing to do would be to set up some sort of advisory group or representatives from the operational communities that could interact directly with IANA. So we fast forward to where we are now, and sure enough, the Customer Standing Committee, I think that's what it's called, is, at least from my personal perspective, a pretty close embodiment of what I thought would be a natural and sensible thing to do. Of course, now it's not alone. It's we have the PTI, we have a bunch of other mechanisms, and very broadly, from my perspective, one could argue all the details, but I don't see any fundamental problem with this. We stand ready to execute, really, and that's our job, is to execute and to be of service. And as I heard clearly in the introduction of Elise, I think she and her team are very well appreciated across all the communities, and including particularly the numbers community. One or two things about the mechanics. We have this contract that we've had with NTI for several years. I have a certain amount of experience with government contracts. Many years ago, I actually worked for the government, handing out money and necessarily getting involved with contracts. Contracts are big, weighty, messy things, and particularly as they get older, they get encrusted with barnacles. There's all kinds of stuff in the current NTI contract that if one started from a clean sheet, one would simply do things differently. There's a multitude of processes and reports and all sorts of things that over time make less and less sense, but they develop a certain momentum, like, well, it's been there, so let's not change it. One of the things that has been of a little bit of concern, I wouldn't say a huge concern, but a little bit of concern, is the prospect of carrying over the wordings directly from the existing NTI contract into new arrangements. I think this is an excellent time to ask, so what is it that is really useful and helpful in any kind of agreement? As opposed to, well, it's in there before, so we'll just carry it over. It must have been there for a reason. I can tell you, as I said, from my experience actually working in government, that there's an awful lot of stuff which, if you ask the question, why is it there? Surely there was a reason. The answers are not very interesting and not very lovely. So I would counsel that this is a time for streamlining, for taking a close look at what really is in there and what should be in there. And there's no issue about intent here. There's no issue about trying to wiggle out of anything. It's only a question of how best to be helpful and to make things work well. I saw that there was a little bit of attention on the intellectual property. Our posture has always been that the registries that we publish are other people's information, yours or the names communities or the ITFs. So we don't hold any sense of propriety or ownership over the basic information. When it comes to the intellectual property related to the IANA function itself, which translates into, I believe, 3 trademarks and 3 domain names, we have watched the interactions and discussions about trying to curtain those off, put them in some safe place, if you will. And again, we don't have any fundamental problem with that. We've seen the CRISP proposal suggest that it should go into the IETF trust. We've seen that the IETF folks have said, sure, if you want to do that. We've seen a lot of other dialogue about some of the details. And as I hope we made clear from some of the information we published, all that's fine. Work it out. It could go into the ITF trust. It could go into a parallel separate trust specifically devoted for IANA, or it could do something else. Again, our posture is to be helpful in all that. We will speak up if we see anything that we think is amiss. I guess I need to comment somewhere along here that in that video there was the process of submitting proposals and having NTIA and the U.S. government in general look at them in depth, which is all certainly true. There is an unspoken but inescapable small detail, which is any change to the way ICANN functions has to be done in the usual fashion of changing ICANN. That is, the board has to pass resolutions, the community has to comment on it, and so forth. So we don't make changes to our bylaws or to our operations or indeed to any other major piece of what we do without going through all of those functions seriously and carefully. And we will do that, of course, with the proposals that come from ICG and from the CCWG. I think that covers the main points that I wanted to say. I think, as I said before, I think it's really important the number of people who've been involved, the amount of energy that's put into it, and it's really a testament to the way the community is able to function, that it brings so many people together, and I think that's fantastic.
Thank you very much, Steve. I think I can speak on behalf of the numbers community that we've been very, very grateful for your public support of the... That's not me. Very, very grateful for your very public support for our CRISP proposal at, I think, ICANN in Singapore, and also your leadership in relation to this matter. I think in relation to the SLA, and we'll touch a little bit more about that later on, we would very much welcome ICANN's frank views on the SLA so that we can bring it back to our community to get their agreement. Steve, before I let you go, there's been some recent developments in the accountability space. I'm just wondering whether it's appropriate for you to maybe just speak very briefly about that.
I'd be happy to. Just as we've been watching closely the development of the individual proposals and then the compound proposal from the ICG, we've been watching the accountability proposal. I think as everybody's aware, that's been proceeding rather briskly, but still somewhat slightly behind the speed of the ICG proposal. I need to be disciplined here lest our schedule go completely crazy. There's several different elements in the CCWG proposal, all related to accountability. an expanded judicial or judiciary function, the ability to recall some or all of the board, ability to enforce the will of the community in the event that there are some concerns about the way the ICANN has been making decisions. Some other key things in there. It's very early in the morning here, I apologize. And we're basically in support of all of those. We have some issues with the particular details and are engaged now in some dialogue about all of that. And I'd be happy to answer questions. I'm here to be helpful to you, so wherever you want to go. But I don't want to derail your primary agenda here.
Thank you very much, Steve. We are very grateful for Steve, who has had to wake up at 5 a.m. this morning to be on stage for us in Jakarta. Steve, you're very, very much welcome to stay on the line and listen to our proceedings. But if you would like to go, we fully understand that as well. But we'll go ahead with our agenda. So today's session is all about getting our community feedback. You know, in the Asia Pacific community, I know because of language skills, language issues, we in Asia Pacific are not as vocal as communities in the other parts of the world. I would very much like to encourage you as part of our Asia Pacific community to make sure that your voices are heard in relation to this very, very important transition. Today is your day. I mean, there's been many opportunities leading up to now, but if you have any questions or comments, I would very much welcome that you to come up to the microphone and provide us with your views. Alan has gone through the ICG proposal. So in a nutshell, we are retaining ICANN as the IANA functions operator, but with change in the governance structure and accountability structure. I'll invite Axel Paulik, who's the chair of the NRO, the Number Resources Organization, the organization that represents the 5 RIRs, for his view, or the NRO's view, on the ICG proposal.
Yes, thank you, Craig. So, yes, we've, I think, all memorized the CRISP proposal so far. We have seen the wonderful picture about the ICG proposal, the big proposal that combines everything. So obviously now, as we have the last day of the open comment period, the NRO needs to comment on that as well. And personally speaking, I'm fine with the ICG proposal. I like it. I think it's great. But we have this long-standing tradition that we ourselves are taking ourselves back, and we want to act as the voice of the community. So basically what we said, we've asked the CRISP team to do is to review the ICG proposal in the light of the CRISP principles as such, and also with regard to the ICG requirements that were laid out in front. So having done that, we are very happy to see that the ICG proposal has been scrutinized and passed according to the CRISP team comments on the mailing list supporting the ICG proposal. So that's great news, and of course that, as I said, is congruent with my own views, so we will quickly respond publicly as well. But I think the more interesting points at this time are the questions of what's going to happen next. So we have a numbers communities SLA draft out for the second time now for public comment. So we've received the comments. I think predominantly they were rather positive, with a couple of smaller points there. Those need to be reviewed and brought into the final draft that then will, the nearly final draft that we'll talk to ICANN and IANA about. And I would like to echo Steve's points there about the craft that is accumulated in old and matured contracts. And our point of view when we set out to do this was to according to the community principles, to introduce as little change as possible. So we basically took the old NTIA contract and took it apart and looked at the numbers part of that and basically assembled the new draft SLA on the basis of that. And I do hear that not everybody is equally happy with the size of it and the perceived activities that need to be performed there. As we've seen, there is not that much that in terms of yearly turnover that IANA has to do for, so it should be as simple as possible. And the next stage of this whole procedure will be that we informally will start talking to IANA and /ICANN about the contents of that contract. And I think we'll quickly come to an agreement there. We will. So basically, that's the contract part. We have the questions about intellectual property, I think, nearly resolved. Steve mentioned that as well. I think we all agree that an independent trust holding it would be great. Where precisely that's going to sit, we'll see. But it's important that we all agree on the direction here. One thing that we have to do is the review committee set up that Alan mentioned. Somewhere out to the right on the big picture was a review committee that would help the RIR communities to assess the quality of the work that IANA is doing. That should also be not such a heavy load, but it needs to be initiated, initialized, that team, and we are starting to do that now within the RIR communities. And that's basically all I would have to say here. The NRO fully supports the ICG proposal. We are very happy that it came out when it came out, and it's all rosy lands in front of us, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Axel. Now, have we bamboozled you? Does the IANA, the ICG proposal sound reasonable to you? Please come up to the microphone and speak. But I'll ask Izumi, as the chair of the CRISP team, about CRISP's position on the ICG proposal. How does that stack up?
With the microphone. My name is Izumi Akutani. So I'm chair of the CRISP team, and I feel that I'm very thankful that we have come very far in this process since the announcement from the NTIA in March last year. And also the CRISP team was set up in November last year. And now we have actually come up to the process where it's not just we have managed to come up with a proposal as a numbers community, but we now have a combined proposal on all three IANA functions. And we observe nothing that is consistent with what has been proposed from the numbers community in the combined proposal. So we're happy, we observe no concerns. And one possible potential area that may have had inconsistency or incompatibility with the number proposal is the establishment of the PTI, because it's an organization that will be performing as the IANA function operator. In our proposal, we actually proposed the ICANN to continue. But I think in conclusion, we see no issues because we see PTI simply as changing the organizational hat of what ICANN's IANA department now is doing, so no changes in staff, system, or operational procedures. It's just going to call themselves, instead of ICANN, IANA department, they're just going to call themselves PTI. That's my understanding of this, and we think we see no issues. So that's my observations in relation to the ICG proposal. I don't know if you want to go into the details of implementation, or do you want to discuss this later?
I think we'll discuss the implementation a little bit later.
A little bit later. Okay, sure.
Thank you very much, Izumi. What I would like to do is to get, because I think on the mailing list there's been some question raised about PTI, And I think Shiva here has raised that question, so it might be useful for, if you are happy to use this as an opportunity to raise that question. Are you happy to do that? So there's a mailing list which is IANA expert@nro.net, where comments about the proposal is being received and processed. And I think Shiva posted a question in the last couple of days in relation to the PTI.
Firstly, I would like to thank Chris' team, and I really want to appreciate the work of Chris' team and other internet community members in developing the proposal. My comment is, like when Chris' team was developing the number community proposal to be submitted to the ICG, there was no such proposed body called post-transition IANA, and the number committee was satisfied with the work of ICANN as an IANA function operator post-transition. It proposed that the review committee will advise the NROEC regarding the ICANN's performance and the meeting and identify the service levels as per the new service level agreement. However, as per the graphic you showed earlier, when we were discussing IANA transition, where all the three communities structures were there, as per my understanding, there is no point to reviewing the work and performance as per the new SLA of ICANN alone. Reviewing committee should also review the work and performance of the PTI, also in addition to ICANN, since in future there will be a new body called PTI, which will be serving as the IANA function operator.
Izumi, are you happy to take
Yes,
that?
sure. Thank you very much for this question, Shiva. Would it be possible to show the diagram of the ICG proposal here? And I think you posed a very good question, since this PTI was actually not a part of the number community proposal. Yes. So how does this affect the performance of the review committee? No, that's your question,
actually,
right?
We reached the consensus we reached the consensus at the time of 15th January, I guess. Before 13th January, that was the last date for submitting comment. But there were, I guess, at that moment there is no such body PTI in the mind of the number community. But now we submitted that proposal at that moment. But now we just have to look how PTI will be accountable to regional RIRs.
Yes, thank you. So I think your question is, when number community made a proposal, we actually was considering ICANN will continue to be the IANA function operator, and this idea of PTI came up afterwards.
Yeah.
So how does this affect the number community proposal, including the role of the review committee? That's your question, right?
We can see in this graphic, like there is the two communities are going to review the performance of PTI also, but the only number community is not going to review the work of PTI. I suggest if we include PTI also in the review.
Thank you, Shiva. I think Izumi is trying to answer the question for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we don't see that this will actually have fundamental effect in the number community proposal. Why is this? Because as I made a comment earlier, actually PTI is simply changing the hat of ICANN from PTI. The rest all remains the same, the function on the IANA numbering services itself. And we simply make sure that IANA function operator will remain accountable to our community through the contract with ICANN, which is what we proposed. And then ICANN will actually be sub-delegating this function to PTI. So as long as ICANN gives assurance to us, yes, RIRs, you can be assured that IANA numbering services continue to be provided to you to meet your expectations. They can actually sub-delegate this to PTI, and this is covered in the second version of the SLA. That's in regard to the SLA. And then with regard to the review committee, the main role of the review committee is defined as doing the review on the IANA numbering services. It doesn't really specify whether it's ICANN or whether it's PTI. And then now that PTI is doing this, providing this function, I think the review committee can actually review the performance of the IANA numbering services, which is now operated by PTI. Does that answer your question?
Okay. I just like to say, likewise in SLA, if we are having some performance parameters there, we are having. So how you PTI will be able to give answer to the ICANN? Likewise, now, yeah, these performance parameters we are meeting. Likewise, you can see in that diagram also review of the performance. But then when some other body is going to do that work, I'm still not clear how it will be, because there's nowhere the role of PTI is clear yet now, because it's an imaginary body, yeah, it's a proposed body in future kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm little afraid of how they will going to. So that's it.
Sure. Oh, thank you. So my understanding is that ICANN will actually be exchanging the contract with PTI to delegate the performance of the IANA functions, of all three functions. So if PTI does not really perform well, then they will be breaching the agreement with ICANN. So they're going to have some legal implications, and that's how ICANN will ensure that PTI will meet its expectations. That's my understanding of the arrangement and ensuring that PTI will meet the expectations of ICANN.
Okay, I'm getting your point, but I'm just saying, what is the problem if we also review the work of PTI?
We will actually, in fact, the review committee will be reviewing the work of PTI. So the fact that the contract is between the RIRs and ICANN, the SLA at the moment has a clause that says that ICANN can subdelegate the performance of any of these contractual obligations to another body. But the
SLA, I'm not saying the SLA, I have a problem with SLA, I have the problem with the review community, because review community will review work and will submit the report to the NRO ECs. So they will be able to understand what is happening down. If we are going to review the work of ICANN, which is delegating that work, I'm not saying that a contract is not in place, but I'm just saying reviewing committee should review also and submit a separate report also. Likewise, these are the performance parameters that we are talking in the service level agreement, which we propose, which we have in contract with ICANN, so that they will also review the work. That's it.
I think I understand your point, but I think it is actually addressed. So perhaps we can take that offline. But Kuawei, you have Kuawei.
I have a question for you. You are supporting the PTI, or you don't like the PTI?
I don't have any problem with PTI, because PTI is going to do the same work what ICANN is doing, but I'm afraid of the accountability of PTI, what will be in future. Even every community have the same concerns. We are. I'm also going to submit comments on the other forums also.
Thank you, Shiva. We can actually perhaps take that offline for more discussions, but that's certainly a very good question, and I think we will definitely take that on board. Kuawei, do you want to say something else?
I try to speak in my personal and very wise thinking about it. Might be it's too late, but I try to tell you my comment through this year. I think we actually can do much simpler and easy way. Unfortunately, the outcome is so complicated and make model so difficult to implement it. My personal, not as a board view, please. Actually, in the very beginning, I recommended ICANN should restart the IANA committee and open the IANA committee, allow the community leader to join and look at whatever the IANA operation is, transparent to all the community. Because what you want to make sure the community own the IANA, you can monitor it. Unfortunately, this never really get popular. Right now, we come out with a very sophisticated and complicated model. And are you really doing any better? After a year, I found it sorry, it's too late.
You're not talking about, presumably, you're talking about the overall IATA transition, because the numbers function is itself quite simple, and the protocols parameters function transition is actually quite simple.
Well,
it's a
yes,
names.
yes and no.
Yeah.
Because eventually these three proposals put together,
Yes.
it's difficult to say this number, this name, this protocol, right? Because you need to combine. Since it is combined, I can have no choice. I can have no choice outsourcing the number and the protocol to PTI. We have no choice.
Thank
But
you.
This is much better. That means the very simple function between the protocol IANA number 2 IANA is going into the PTI. This is a monster.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kuo Wei. And Kuo Wei normally speaks louder than this. Unfortunately, he's had a recent operation which has muted him somewhat. But thank you for your comment. Next.
Hi, my name is David Huberman, representing Microsoft. My comments are directed towards you as a member of the ICG and Mr. Barrett as a member of the ICG. We support the creation of this PTI, but I have to echo what Shiva has said. There's significant deficiencies with the proposal we are reviewing and commenting on today. Nowhere in this proposal does it provide a full and limiting definition of the remit of PTI. Nowhere in this proposal does it provide clear accountability to the ICANN board. And most importantly, we have this concept called mission creep. PTI, as it's currently proposed, can do anything it wants. And this I don't think is appropriate. I support the creation of the PTI. However, as a member of the numbers community, I really fear that this thing will get out of control, just like ICANN went from 15 people and a few $1 million to $150 million in 10 years. I think the numbers community is not well served until the proposal clearly lays out its remit, its accountability, and limits its ability to expand beyond the reaches currently envisioned. Thank you.
Paul, would you like to respond to that? Paul Wilson, Director General of APNIC and also a member of the ICG.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think it is easy to look at this diagram and to look at it as complicated and to look at it as carrying risks simply because, you know, on the one hand it looks complicated and on the other hand it doesn't contain all the details that are necessary to put all the risks into context. My understanding of the PTI, I think the easiest way, by my understanding, to view the PTI is simply as the IANA office. That is the office that Elise Garrick has run for many years in a very contained and responsible manner. And whatever your opinion about ICANN's own mission and its possible mission creep, I don't think we've seen the same thing within the IANA office. I think the IANA office is very well defined in terms of the functions that it performs. And I don't myself see a risk of mission creep arising simply from the fact that the office is being moved into what is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of ICANN. So if Elise was to go a little nuts and decide that IANA's mission needed to creep or to expand, then she's obviously got the same accountability to the ICANN structure as she had. And also, in our terms, I mean, I think that the beauty, if you like, of this model is that it serves the communities specifically. So speaking from the RAR community perspective, we don't need to understand and to be fully supportive of, engaged and involved with every aspect of this diagram. The part that we care about is the numbers part. And our relationship with IANA will be very well defined by the SLA. And I don't see a reason to expect a change. And I think what we do have are the safety mechanisms that if anyone did change dramatically and things went badly, I think out of kilter, as Alan said, what is inbuilt here are the provisions for us to remove ourselves from the arrangement. So, I mean, I think when you put those aspects together, the fact that we are opting in and we are supporting and we are there for as long as we support, I do think we've got the ability to respond if anything goes wrong in the sense that you mentioned, David. Speaking from I'll say again that from the ICG point of view, one thing that the ICG decided very early on as a result of the very early consultation that went on is that this process of IANA transition can be subdivided into three, that there are three sets of IANA functions that are almost completely independent in their nature from each other, and also serving of independent communities. And so the division of the task, the big task into three smaller tasks really was a fundamental decision of the ICG, and it did result, I think inevitably, in three quite separate approaches. But if you tried to do something else, if you tried to impose or to decide on a singular approach that was more harmonious than you see here, that would serve each of the three communities specifically, then I fear we'd still be talking about it now, instead of having subdivided the task and addressed the task in three separate communities and produced the result we have. So, you know, the result may not be pretty to look at, but I think from our perspective, we know what it is that we care about, and hopefully we're fully informed and hopefully also satisfied with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. David, I hope that addresses your issue. Dimitri.
Dmitry Burkov, IPCC. It's my personal opinion, but for me it still looks like a huge mistake that we refused from idea to split IANA functions. Because as I want to remind you, 20 years ago we have one person to execute IANA functions. Now we have a dozen. How many hundreds we will have in 20 years? And for me, it's obvious that just simple technical functions. Now it's more political manipulations. I very appreciated all your work of CRISP and ICG, but under the external pressure and requirements from NTIA, it was impossible on this stage to change, because even proposed by Paul and from our side, stage plan for IANA transition was rejected. Now we have all eggs in one basket with unpredictable consequences. But I still believe that in future we can change. Maybe we will get a chance to change. Because in all these discussions on IANA contract transitions, we missed one point about who was the real supervisor, who will be the real owner of all this legal scheme. Because it's obvious for me that it looks like still the last word will be on US government side still for many years later. And it's a problem, because if we will need to improve the scheme, we will go the same round. And it's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. I mean, I think that we'll accept that as a comment. I'm not sure if anyone would like to respond to that. Paul, community participation is important, and APNIC has set up a channel for our community to have its views. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, it's very simply that I think to ask any member of the community to read and digest the entire ICG proposal is a difficult thing. As Kuo, I think, has said himself, it is a complex thing, and I think we know why it is so complex, and the fact is that we don't all as members of the community need to concern ourselves with every aspect of it. So I think the opportunity to comment on the ICG proposal is there, but realistically it may not be expected that very many people will convincingly do that. this is one reason why the CRISP team was asked to please comment on the ICG proposal as a team to make sure that it does reflect what the CRISP team proposed. And I think thanks very much to Izumi and the whole team. They produced a very comprehensive and very straightforward analysis which really asserted, I think convincingly, on behalf of the numbers community, that yes, the ICG proposal does contain the CRISP proposal unadulterated. It has not introduced inconsistencies which causes CRISP any problems. And then, in addition, it's also quite arguably and demonstrably consistent with what the ICG asked. What the ICG asked in terms of the overall requirements include what the NTIA asked. So, you put all of these things together and we've got, I think, on behalf of the numbers community, a very convincing statement of endorsement for the ICG proposal. Now, I would recommend the CRISP response as a much more easily digested response that should satisfy the needs of this community to understand exactly why the proposal can be supported. So, the ICG comments are still open, and anyone can join the ICG website and fill in a form that is quite specific about the aspects of the proposal. You have also been able to join the IANA transfer mailing list. But just in the last couple of days, we've provided another avenue which is on the for the APNIC community. It's on the APNIC website, and it simply is a way of adding your voice as a internet number community person to say that yes, indeed, you have noted and are aware of the ICG proposal, the CRISP response to the ICG proposal, and that you're willing as a member of numbers community to support that. Now that's an editable form, so in fact you can say whatever you like, and it's an easier way to send an email through to the ICG's comment line. But that is available, and it's open for the next 13 hours and counting at that URL. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. So 13 hours and 45 minutes to submit your comment. apnic.net/IANA if you want to make your comment. Does anyone else want to make a comment about the ICG proposal or any concerns that you want to raise about the ICG proposal? This is your opportunity. If not, then we will go to the implementation plan. So assuming that the ICG proposal goes through, because at the moment it has received a statement of support from CRISP, that it is not inconsistent with the CRISP proposal. And I think I've seen on the mailing list a number of supporting statements about the ICG proposal. ICG is meeting next week in Los Angeles to discuss all this. And so assuming that this goes through, then the next step would be implementation. But Shiva, have you got another question?
I have another question, but I'm not clear, but I just want to ask, because ICG members are here, so I would like to ask if I'm much concerned about the IETF. If IETF chooses a different IANA function IOFO in future, IANA function operator in future, so, and I understand there's a separate policy development processes at a regional level also, at global policy level, at what these communities are, GNSO, CCNSO and all, which are connected to it. But how ICANN will be able to enforce IETF in future if IETF chooses to work with some other community as IANA function operator? I guess I tried to read all the documents, but I find we are lacking in this. So how we are going to fill this gap? Because I'm not afraid of number and names, but I'm much afraid of IETF.
Thank you, Shiva. Would anyone want, this is the separation issue. Anyone want to take that?
Okay, so as I understand the question, it's what will happen if at some future time one of the operating communities for example, the IETF chooses to stop using ICANN or the PTI as their IANA functions operator? I think the answer is we haven't really figured that out. We understand that if it ever happens, there will be a need for coordination. I think that the requirement for coordination will be written into SLAs or contracts, and we'll work out the details if it ever happens, and we hope it doesn't happen. In the absolute worst case, if the relationship between, say, IETF and ICANN got so bad that IETF wanted to move and ICANN refused to cooperate, the final fallback is that they might have to do it themselves or find another operator, perhaps stop using the name IANA, but they could still do their work. That's the absolute worst case, but we certainly hope that doesn't happen.
Thank you, Alan. Izumi.
Thank you, Shiva, for this question. It's so important because I think the absolute big priority for all of us is the stable continuation of the IANA functions, right? So, and I believe that this proposed mechanism really ensures this because it actually leads to each of the direct customers of the IANA functions. So for the protocol parameters, it's the IETF, for the numbers, RIRs, and then for names, it's ICANN community. So they would have the direct interest themselves to ensure that each of these IANA functions will remain accountable and, continue to run in a stable manner. So it may be the case that IETF will have a separate IANA function operator, but I'm sure it would be in the interest of IETF to ensure whatever this new organization that they set up, they're going to make sure this will serve the IETF community, that they will continue in the protocol parameter function. And again, I think they will coordinate with the other operational communities, that it will not impact them. So that's why the CRISP team is quite assured that this proposed mechanism really is a good check and balance in ensuring the stability. And then, zooming it out a little bit into, rather than going into the details, I think this transition itself is very symbolic that the oversight mechanism will be transitioned from a US government to each of these operational communities. And so you might not necessarily follow all the details of the oversight mechanism, but this spirit and the overall model and the structure itself may be something that's very familiar to all of us. And I think that's where, the form that Paul has mentioned that APNIC is providing, I think that's the kind of broad idea that is touching. And that's why I would like to encourage many of us to share our support for this kind of concept.
I would like to say, first of all, we just have to understand what ICANN is doing as an IFO on the behalf of IETF. With the RFCs, whatever we develop, standards what we develop, they publish on on their website, so that people can follow those standards. As a network, as an engineer, my understanding is that. So that I'm asking, likewise, there will be a new contract. We are empowering IETF to give that contracts to any entity in future. Likewise, if they are not satisfied with the ICANN, NTI is giving that oversight, giving up that oversight, and they are going to give that to the new community like IETF, which is a multi-stakeholder, as per my understanding. So if that community stop following the global policies which develop at the ICANN level, if they say we are not going to publish that thing, they started doing their own functions, or they make. So I couldn't find anywhere, I don't know where I'm lacking in the ICANN bylaws or something somewhere. So if you can highlight me so that where it is properly, ICANN will be able to enforce that community to the proposals which are developing by the multi-stakeholder community at ICANN level should able to they will be able to enforce or something to follow this proposal at IETF level.
I think you raised some good issues but because we've
Yeah,
run out of time,
yeah, I know,
I think
I'm a
perhaps
different issue
yes,
from this,
exactly.
but
Please
I know.
maybe raise that on the mailing list so that we can have a discussion around that. I do want to go to implementation because we're out of time. We're about 10 minutes before they kick us out of this room. Perhaps I can get Izumi, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about the implementation plan that, the development so far.
Yes, so I think Axel has actually quite covered quite a bit of the core part of the implementation of the number community proposal. So there are two components that needs to be ready. One is drafting the exact text of the SLA between ICANN and the RIRs. The second is setting up the details of the review committee, including its composition. And both are now already out, the idea. So on the SLA text, the second version is out for the public comment, and I think it's the period is already closed, but then all the community has had a chance to give input. And then the same goes for the review committee charter. Again, it was open for public comment, and I observed no fundamental issues. And then from the CRISP team perspective, we reviewed it, whether this implementation details is consistent with the number community proposal. I observed that it is. And just, comment on the overall process. I really want to thank the RIR CEOs for making this very transparent. And so we had a chance to make sure that, we can share our views. And I understand that in terms of the SLA, the next step would be negotiation between ICANN and RIRs. I trust that both will be on negotiating for the good of the community as a whole, and I would be expecting this continued consistency in the process in developing the SLA throughout the completion of the implementation.
Thanks, Izumi. One of the big discussion points is, of course, accountability, and we touched a little bit about that before with Steve Crocker. I think you have been quite involved in the ICANN accountability discussions. Is there anything you would like to raise here, just briefly?
Well, many of you might be wondering, why are we talking about ICANN accountability when we're talking about IANA, and what's relevant does it have to the numbers community, right? The reason is that the NTIA has set a requirement that they need the proposal, in addition to the IANA stewardship transition, that they need proposal on how we can enhance ICANN's accountability. The reason is that they want to ensure that ICANN remains and continue as a trustable organization even without the oversight by the NTIA. And so there's been a group being set up within ICANN to consider this issue. There's 4 representatives from the numbers community involved in this group to ensure that perspective from the number community is being reflected. And we have a little bit of unique view on ICANN accountability compared to the rest of the ICANN community, because we actually have assurance through the SLA that if we have any concerns, these in terms of the IANA numbering services, all the necessary conditions are being just laid out in the SLA, so we can actually make sure that the service performance will be maintained in the way that we expect. So we would have less preference over which particular kind of implementation model that ICANN would be taking, which is now being discussed. And so I think the call for us is ICANN's process and accountability in the coming process for the SLA.
Thank you, Izumi. Paul?
Yeah, I think it's important for those of us in this room to understand, particularly if we haven't been to an ICANN meeting before, that it's a very different thing that we have here. We have an established number community process, including a policy process that's separate from ICANN. And so in fact our relationship with ICANN is quite smooth and quite harmonious. Policies are made in this forum here, and where policies impact on the IANA, then providing the 5 RIRs agree, IANA actually becomes bound to actually comply with a global policy. If you go to an ICANN meeting, you'll find that within the ICANN process, is where the domain name policies are being made, and the clean separation between the policy and implementation in the names area doesn't exist nearly so clearly. So there may be some allegations or some concerns that some policies may be made within the ICANN meeting environment or within the ICANN organisation that then become immediately effective on IANA, and they may not follow the same clean separation and open process. So it's no surprise actually that ICANN accountability has not been a concern for this community. I mean, we've got our respective roles, we've got our interfaces, and things have worked very well. So I think this is where you won't find people so much, as far as I know, within this community saying that we must have some improvements in ICANN's accountability before anything goes ahead. We actually would be prepared, I think, to set a bar at a much more reasonable level in order to go ahead with the requirements for our part of the IANA transition. This does actually come back to the thing that Dimitri mentioned before, which is the prospect that I had raised earlier of a staged transition, where if there are some further requirements on ICANN or some expectations that ICANN must do certain things in order to satisfy the numbering community, should that necessarily delay the achievement of what we have set out to do in the numbering community, on account of the requirements of another community. I don't think we have to answer that question yet, because I think we're still hoping that everything happens in a harmonious way. But we are sort of at the mercy, in fact, of expectations of ICANN that I think are not our expectations, frankly. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Paul. We're approaching the time where we have to leave, but I might just give Steve Crocker, if he's still on the line, an opportunity to have a last word. Steve, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you very much for staying back with us. We're wrapping up the session. You've got the floor.
Thank you very much. I've listened to the full session. I wasn't able to hear the questions from the floor, but I was able to hear all of the speakers and you. I hope this has been a helpful session to all of the attendees. I and my fellow board members and much of the ICANN staff have been rather fully engaged in staying up to speed on what what's in the proposals, what the actual implementation details will look like, and we're sort of living and breathing this. There's a mixture of excitement and exhaustion at the same time. I think we're very eager to move this forward, and we're very eager to get over the hump so that at some point the end will be in sight. It's taken, in the process of taking all the energy that it has, there's necessarily been a cost, not so much in dollars, which had some impact, but just in terms of opportunity costs. So there's a lot of other useful work, important work that we're eager to move forward with. So I hope that we're not here a year from now and 2 years from now having similar kinds of discussions. I hope that we get to see that it's all been put in place and that we're moving forward. I thank you very much for the invitation to participate with you. I remain impressed. The setting and the room that you have there looks very warm and inviting, and I wish I were there instead of sitting all alone in my office early in the morning. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I have a feeling that we're aiming to end this session.
Thank you very much, Steve. We are wrapping up, so will you help me thank all our panelists for today's session. And thank you all too for participation. But before we go, there's one more thing. Paul.
Yes, of course, there's one more thing.
I'm trying to be like Steve Jobs, but it doesn't work.
One more thing. We have heard a lot from Izumi today. In fact, we've heard a lot from Izumi over the entire intense period that we followed here for the last, the best part of a year. Izumi has chaired the CRISP team. She has also worked on behalf of the RARs on the CCWG. And it's actually been a huge amount of work. We might not all recognise it, but you can see in all of its detail the record of work of the CRISP team on the NRO website, and that includes something like 26 or so meetings, global telephone conferences involving the 15 members of the CRISP team. If you look back at the intense period between December and January, at the beginning of this year, there was a 1-month period where I think they had 12 international phone conferences at all hours of the day and night in order to meet that ICG deadline in the middle of January. So all of the CRISP team did some outstanding work, some incredibly arduous work on our behalf, on behalf of the numbers community. But I know full well that Izumi as chair was the one who was absolutely there at all of those meetings and was much more consistently dedicated, had to be consistently dedicated to preparation for those meetings and planning and reporting, and she also had a day job at that time as well. And I just want to take this opportunity, hoping, as Steve said, that we're not, and hoping for Izumi, that we're not here still in a year's time. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Izumi very much and to present Izumi with a token from APNIC on behalf of the community for the work that she's done for all of us.
Thank you very much. It's such a nice surprise, and I am very happy. And, you know, I'm not going to make a long speech, so don't worry. But I really want to thank everybody in the CRISP team and the RIRs and also the community for really, I mean, I'm just not saying this for the cliche, but I really feel we really have a good community and collaboration, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Izumi. So thank you very much for your participation. This session is now finished. Thank you.